Los Angeles is a city built on engines, on dreams held together by chrome and gasoline, on freeways that stretch out like endless promises and canyon roads that tempt you with their curves. For decades, this place has created legends who live fast, drove faster, and left behind stories that felt too big for the real world. But no story hit the city harder than the afternoon when a man known for speed, kindness, and calm slipped out of the world in a moment so violent and unbelievable that people are still trying to understand how it happened. His name was Paul Walker, and on November 30th, 2013, his story ended on a simple street in Valencia, far from cameras, far from stunt crews, far from the Hollywood myths people later tried to build around him. Paul Walker grew up in Southern California, a kid from the valley who surfed before school, who loved the ocean more than he loved the spotlight, and who never pretended to be anything other than who he was. Long before the world knew him as Brian O'Connor, the undercover cop in the Fast and Furious franchise, Paul was just a quiet, sunburned California boy who stumbled into acting because people liked the way he looked on camera. Even when he rose through the late 90s in films like Pleasantville and Varsity Blues, he didn't chase celebrity. Stardom seemed to chase him. And then came 2001, the year The Fast and the Furious hit theaters and changed his life forever. The movie exploded. Neon, nose, street racing, family. It became more than a film. It became a culture, and Paul Walker became its heartbeat. But off-screen, he was nothing like his character. While Hollywood tried to turn him into a superstar, Paul spent his time surfing, exploring, and helping people quietly. He was humble, private, sharper than he let on, and fiercely devoted to the small circle of people he trusted. When disasters struck, tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, Paul didn't just donate. He got on planes, rolled up his sleeves, and built things with his own hands. That's why he founded Reach Out Worldwide, a relief organization that specialized in fast, efficient ground-level aid. Paul never wanted the credit. He wanted impact. And that mission is the reason he was in Valencia on the afternoon of November 30th, 2013. It was a charity event, low-key, friendly, local, a gathering meant to raise funds for disaster relief. Paul Walker was there greeting fans, spending time with his daughter earlier in the day, and talking with his close friend Roger Rodas, a respected businessman, a skilled driver, and someone who shared Paul's love for cars. Parked at the event was a 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, a machine known for its power, rawness, and lack of electronic safety systems. Owners often said the same thing. It was a race car that tolerated no mistakes. Sometime after 3 p.m., Paul and Roger decided to take the Porsche out for a quick drive. Not a race, not a run through canyons, just a short loop around the industrial park to hear the V10 engine breathe, the kind of harmless outing car lovers take every day. They climbed in, buckled up, and pulled onto Hercules Street, a wide, curving road surrounded by warehouses and office parks. At 3:26 p.m., the Porsche was traveling down that stretch at a speed later estimated by investigators to be between 80 and 93 miles per hour in a 45 zone. The curve ahead was gentle, but the margin for error in a Carrera GT at that speed was small. The car lost control, veered off the road, collided with a light pole and several trees, and immediately erupted into flames. The impact was so violent that the car broke apart, scattering debris across the sidewalk and sending smoke into the sky. People from the nearby charity event sprinted toward the crash. Several tried to reach Paul and Roger, but the fire was too intense. First responders arrived within minutes, but there was nothing anyone could do. Both men died on impact. Paul from traumatic injuries and thermal injuries, Roger from trauma. According to the Los Angeles County coroner, toxicology tests showed no alcohol, no drugs, nothing that impaired either of them. It wasn't a DUI crash. It was a high-speed loss of control in a notoriously sharp, demanding car. But the moment the wreck photos hit the internet, something shifted. The crash didn't look real. It looked like something out of the movies. Twisted carbon fiber, fire-blackened metal, a tree ripped apart by force. People refused to believe that a man who survived insane crashes on screen could die in one so fast, so ordinary, and so brutally final. And from that disbelief, conspiracy theories started to grow in the cracks. Investigators stayed grounded in the physical evidence. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the California Highway Patrol found no second vehicle involved, despite rumors online. No signs of pre-impact explosion, no indication of sabotage, no external cause. Their official conclusion was that unsafe speed was the primary factor behind the crash. The scene supported that. Catastrophic impact, no skid marks typical of minor speed accidents, and a road lined with unyielding obstacles. But outside the investigation, the story split in two. One half was the truth. The other half was the internet. Some pointed at the Carrera GT's design, a car with no traction control, no stability systems, a machine so demanding that Porsche had warned it required advanced skill. Others pointed at the tires, which were older, a detail raised in wrongful death lawsuits filed by Paul's daughter, Meadow Walker, which argued that aged tires reduced traction and increased the severity of the crash. Porsche denied liability, arguing the tires were not defective and that the crash resulted solely from excessive speed. Some of the lawsuits ended in confidential settlements, others were dismissed. All of these points were allegations and counter-arguments, not official government findings. But online, none of that nuance mattered. People grabbed fragments from lawsuits, expert commentary, and blurry videos and tried to build bigger, darker stories. Some claimed the car exploded before impact, misreading distant video distortion. Others claimed Paul was targeted because of his charity work, a theory PolitiFact later labeled completely false. None of these claims were supported by any credible evidence, and investigators dismissed them outright. Meanwhile, the people who actually knew Paul were devastated. His daughter Meadow was suddenly left without her father. His Fast and Furious family lost their friend, not just their co-star. Vin Diesel spoke about losing a brother. Tyrese Gibson broke down at the crash site. Fans gathered on Hercules Street and built a memorial that grew larger every day. Flowers, candles, photos, handwritten letters taped to the tree where the crash occurred. And Los Angeles, the city that creates and destroys dreams every day, seemed to pause for a moment. Paul Walker wasn't a scandal, a headline, or a celebrity stereotype. He was kind. He was generous. He helped strangers without telling anyone. He lived quietly despite being known everywhere. And that's why the crash hit so hard, because there was nothing cinematic about the way he died. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't scripted. It was a simple, terrible, tragic accident. In the months that followed, investigators released their full findings. Civil suits played out. Experts debated tire age, road conditions, and vehicle dynamics. But no matter which angle people took, official reports, engineering analysis, lawsuit arguments, the same truth sat at the center of the story. A powerful car, a sharp curve, excessive speed, a sudden loss of control, a violent impact, and a fire that left two families shattered. Paul Walker's legacy didn't end that day. His daughter founded the Paul Walker Foundation in his honor, focusing on ocean conservation and humanitarian efforts, and the Fast and Furious franchise reshaped itself around his absence. And although conspiracy theories still circulate, because the internet will always choose mystery over truth, the evidence is clear, the investigations are complete, and the story remains what it always was. A heartbreaking accident that took a man who spent his life giving more than he ever took. A crash that left a scar on a street in Valencia and a deeper scar on a city that wasn't ready to lose him. In a place obsessed with speed, image, and spectacle, Paul Walker stood out because he didn't need any of it. And maybe that's why his death still feels unreal, because some people just aren't supposed to go that way. But sometimes Los Angeles doesn't care who you are. Sometimes the road takes a turn you can't correct. And sometimes the world loses someone good long before it's ready.